Football kickoff special. For a very limited time, get $10 off a month for 3 months.
Okay, you got pretty good.
It's right here.
Oh.
So, thank you, Denise. Well, we'd like to welcome everyone to our city council meeting tonight. So we will go ahead and call this meeting to order, the Morgan City Council meeting of September 14th, 2021. In attendance at the meeting, we have council members Dave Alexander, Eric Turner, Jeffrey Richards, Jeff Wardell, and myself, Tony London. We have our city manager, Ty Bailey, and our mayor, Ray Little. They are live online. We will begin by our opening ceremony. And we've asked Eric Turner if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following that, we've asked Dave Alexander if he would give us a word of prayer.
Everybody can rise. Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee as we begin the city council meeting of Morgan City. We're thankful for the opportunities we have to gather. We're thankful for the wonderful valley that we inherit and the surroundings that we enjoy. We're thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy, and we pray for those that are protecting them. We ask a blessing to be on our meeting this night, that we may make proper and prudent decisions in the best interests of the city. Do this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Dave and Eric. I'd also like to mention we have Gary Crane here as representing our legal counsel. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Take a moment and peruse the minutes and the warrants. And when you're ready, accept a motion. We'll give you a minute to look them over.
Ty, do you have the minutes or the warrants in front of you?
Yeah.
One question on page 5, the Morgan Secondary Water Association. There's 3 of them on there. For Circle Drive, the train depot, the cemetery, it says fuel, oil, and utility expenses.
Yeah, that needs recoded. So I've gone through and made, there's a handful of changes as well that need to be recoded, but that just needs to be reassigned. It just went to the wrong department. So when she enters them in, sometimes whichever invoice she was working on last time, they forget to go in and change the category. So.
And that's just for to water those areas.
Yep.
Okay. And I've got one other question for you, I guess. On page 11, the Utopia Fiber. Is that a monthly expense?
So one of them is part of the monthly. Let me find it here. So the 700 is our monthly expense, and the one above that is a installation that we missed when we ran fiber to all of our buildings. This goes down to the transfer station where Lance Prescott's office is.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what we do on those is we've paid for each connection instead of increasing the monthly amount. So we bought all of our connections to all of our facilities, and then we just like most of our connections are $7 a month, depending on what they're running, and the offices are $50 a month. And while we're talking about that one, we just canceled our CenturyLink service this month. So we're pretty excited to have everything finally 100% on Utopia.
You ready, Tony?
Anyone prepared for a motion?
Motion that we approve the city council hybrid meeting minutes from August 10th, 2021, and the one set of warrants.
Motion by Eric Turner. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Jeffrey Richens. Is there any other discussion on the minutes or warrants? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. I just got handed a note just a second ago from Denise. Teresa is not coming for chamber report. She's moved it to September 28th. So we can scratch that line item right there on Chamber of Commerce report. That moves us down to our active agenda. Denise, do we have anyone that's contacted you with any public comments? Okay. So nothing on public comments. Moves us down to item 4, ordinance 2106, a change on the consolidated fee schedule, well, an amendment on the consolidated fee schedule, code enforcement and planning zoning fees. Ty, could you walk us through this, please?
Sure. I'm gonna see if I can just share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
So that's the part on the agenda. So this first one is just nuisance violations. So on code enforcement, it doesn't happen very often. Most people comply. I give them a written warning before this first one, or I call them or talk to them. So most people never even get to this first level, but I do have an issue that $100 just doesn't seem to do enough. And by the time I don't know how many hours we've spent. So that just see if the council's willing to up that amount so that it actually becomes a deterrent. Talk to Gary about some of the alternatives on code enforcement, which includes just going to go and get a judgment at court, and doesn't necessarily result in things getting handled. And so that's that one. And then these two is something we haven't really handled in the past until recently, but annexation request. Instead of having it a request, we'll wait till submittal, but there's quite a few development review meetings and a lot of staff time involved in considering an annexation. So all of those meetings leading up to it would be included in that submittal. And like I said, it's something that we don't have very often. We just recognize that it's a lot of time and effort to get to that point. And then similarly with the rezone application and general plan amendment. Since we started those development review meetings, it's several of our contracted staff. It's an engineer, planner, roads, water, power, sewer, myself, Teresa, that are all in those meetings. And so that's what the proposal is. And we don't, so this development review meeting, we don't charge for. So it's really just when somebody gets to the point where they apply, then we try and capture the time that we spend on those at the point of application.
Ty, what are some of your more common non-compliance activities?
Weeds and debris. Yeah, just yards. But for the most part, once you let someone know, those are the ones that we've handled, but a lot of the time is just trying to get a hold of the person the first time, or we send them a letter, they have 2 weeks. So sometimes, by the time the issue gets resolved, the weeds can be pretty out of control.
Say on a typical month during the summer, how many of those would you have?
I'm probably about 8 or 10.
Well, that's a fair amount. More than a little bit of a surprise to me.
Not the ones that these ones are the ones I do a actual letter.
Mhm.
That's where these fees are. So it's pretty much just following up on either a concerned neighbor or a call that we get. I just go see if it's an issue, and if it is, I just try and talk to the homeowner.
Are the events typically driven by a complaint?
Yep, a complaint or a concern, or maybe they've contacted a council member, and that's an appropriate route too. So I'll get a call from a council member, but those I just go talk to. Most everybody is pretty responsive. And then when I'm actually writing the letters and that sort of thing is when we go research the code. And I don't even go that far. I just go make initial contact and validate that there's an actual complaint. When I talk to them about it, whether it's in the code or not, usually I get, hey, I'm just doing this for now, or, we have this going on, so we haven't got to it. And then they usually just take care of it. So
The final $500 amount, is there any action after that?
yeah, so in our process, then we say, you'll be cited for non-compliance. That's what that final notice is you get the final payment, and we say we will cite you for either non-payment or non-compliance. And that's a step we haven't gone to yet, and Gary can probably tell us what's involved in that next step. But I have right now, I do have one that I've warned several times, 3 years in a row, and they've paid the 50, the 100 twice, and they just got their third bill for 100. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Gary, what does follow?
Sure. So what they've done, they do have an appeal to city council. So there's multiple layers of these are the bad cases that Ty has to deal with, repeat offenders that would just rather pay the fine and not do anything about it. But there's two approaches you can take. One approach is you can actually file a criminal charge against them for violating an ordinance. If it's a weeds ordinance or a grass ordinance or something like that, you could go that route. The county attorney's office they do felonies all the time, so probably not going to get a lot of response on that end. But you can also go after them civilly because they have failed to pay a fine. So you could actually take them to small claims court and collect the amounts that are due. If you've got, 5-6 violations, and you go claim $500 to $600, and based on it's a debt due or an obligation due under our laws, because that's the reason you're passing it tonight, is as a law. And the consolidated fee schedule says that if they are ordered to do it and they fail to do it and they've gone through the process, the appeals process, if they choose to take advantage of it, then it's time to ding them. And so that's the other avenue, getting their attention.
Can the city encumber the property if we provided the cleanup, say in a weed situation?
The answer to that is there is a process in your code for deleterious and dangerous objects and materials. And in that is included a provision for weeds. And so that's another avenue you could go down. It's part of the building code, actually, is what it is. And there are a number of notices that need to take place. This is maybe the easiest way for Ty to handle these rather than going through the notice requirements of that section. But if you had a serious offender, for example, with an old building or a bunch of junk in the yard, that type of thing, you could actually go after them under the IBC, which is the International Building Code for deleterious or dangerous objects. And then that does allow you to attach it to the taxes.
Provide the cleanup of the resolution and then make
Yes.
it part of the property.
Yeah, that would be it. So,
Thank you.
I assume back on the applications piece, that probably just what you're doing here, it's probably just probably more reflective of, I would expect the actual costs of doing these things. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, yep. That's closer to, all the people we pay and then how many hours are included, engineering and staff reviews and comments. Because we're looking at, is this possible? Where does the infrastructure begin and end? What would it take, to service that? And then, and that doesn't even include Denise's time with all the document preparations and Gary's time. So I'm fairly comfortable that it doesn't necessarily cover all of our costs, but it's not more than our costs for sure.
So Boyd lighting the weeds on fire, is that a resolution?
Is that what you see right now?
Any other comments or questions on this ordinance? If not, I am prepared to take a motion. Or is someone prepared to make a motion, I should say.
Yeah, Tony, I'd move to approve ordinance 21-06. Ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 1.15 of the Morgan City Code. Amending fees of the consolidated schedule, providing for beneficial or providing for repealer, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Motion by Mr. Alexander. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Tony.
Second by Jeffrey Richens. Is there any other discussion on this ordinance? Once again, this is an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 1-15 of the Morgan City Code, amending fees of the consolidated fee schedule, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Any other comments or questions? This is an ordinance. I'll do a roll call vote. We'll take a roll call vote. Dave?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Jeffrey?
Aye.
Jeff? That is unanimous. 4 ayes. Thank you, gentlemen. That passes, of course. Moving on our agenda, we have a CWPP participation agreement for 2022. Eric, are you prepared to talk about this?
I'll do the best I can, Tony.
Okay.
So the CWPP is a cooperative wildlife protection program, I believe. And what it is agreement between the city and the Division of Natural Resources. And we, in essence, say that we're going to go through some of our areas in the city and do some cleanup in our high-risk areas with some fuel mitigation or whatever it may be, that we'll put in some time and effort and money into that. And in agreement for that, if there was a fire in our city, then we wouldn't be held to that, paying that cost of the fire. So this is coming up again, and over the last few years, we've done some cleanup at the Robinson Springs. We've done some cleanup down by the sewer lagoons. We've had some workshops. So with all those combined, we still are basically on the uphill side of what our part of the agreement is. So that's pretty much where we are with that.
We're not necessarily in the deficit, huh?
No, we're in the still on the. Yep.
Absolutely. So, yeah, go ahead, Boyd. Do we need a mic on Boyd, by the way?
Yep.
Boyd Kerrigan, yes. What's your official title, Boyd?
So I'm the fire chief of Morgan County.
Okay.
And the EMS director.
Okay, thank you.
So just wanted to speak to you a little bit about this. Just want to say you guys have done a phenomenal job. I think your participation match is only like $1,200.
Yep, 1,200 and 1,300 almost.
Yep. So the state does allow you to bank some of that if you do go over. So you're more than welcome to do that. And you guys are fiscal year, right?
Mhm.
Okay. One thing I just did want to mention, up in the Mahogany subdivision, where the county rifle range is, or gun range. So June, July-ish, the fire department kept getting quite a few complaints from the residents in that area about exploding targets. And they're also afraid of ignition sources from shooting. And as you've probably seen from the newspaper articles, we've had quite a few shootings lately that have started fires. And basically that's been unheard of, but we're hearing more and more of it now. So as a fire department, we did go and visit that area of the gun range. And this is what we found. We went up in August. And what we found was upon evaluation of the property over the course of our visitations, we found evidence that there is a very high chance of this range becoming a significant fire issue. We took pictures of our findings and have attached those pictures for reference. During our tour and evaluation of the site, we found the following items of concern: inadequacy of the long range backstop and upper range target areas, or maintenance of the previously constructed dozer line, absent fire suppression equipment in case of fire, fire extinguishers, water tenders or water truck, etc. Found evidence of dead and dying vegetation being shot at through use of targets. Found evidence of shooting occurring well past the fire line into continuous uninterrupted fuels. So basically, what we found in this area was a very high potential of fire risk. So to try to mitigate it, we went to the county council and showed them our findings, and we recommended to close the long range portion of the rifle range until we could mitigate some of these issues. The pistol range, or the short, we decided that was adequate, so we kept that open. So I went out seeking funding for such a project, and I was able to come up with some funding for the county, but it's all for the dirt work. One thing we did learn throughout this process is we could actually put a suppression or buffering line between the range and the residents. But that's city property, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? That's in the city?
Where the homes are.
Yeah. So what I'm just, yeah, that is your urban interface area. So, and that's exactly what this is all about, is trying to make a buffer or some sort of sound barrier that might help the citizens in that area, your citizens. So anyway, I haven't been able to come up with any fundings for that buffer area. Basically, what we want to do is plant some trees. And we feel like even the shade would help the vegetation on the ground not dry out so fast. We've actually found a group of individuals that will actually take on the project and plant the trees, but we don't have any funding for the trees. And I was just wondering if you guys might want to maybe think about donating some money towards the trees. I feel like the sound buffer and would help your citizens as far as that goes. So I just thought I'd bring that up. You're welcome just to use your banked dollars, but it might be something to look at.
not a bad idea.
You know, interesting you come here and talk to us tonight about this, Boyd, because I've thought about this all summer long, because I've been wanting to go up there myself and use that facility, but you know, like you said, there's been a lot of incidences on the news where fires have started, you know, with target shooting and target practice. So I probably agree wholeheartedly with you that something needs to be done up there for sure. So I get it's kind of ironic that you're here tonight talking to us about it. So yeah, so I mean, I don't know what do we have in bank dollars?
Be 62.8. Our allotment's $1,300 basically. So we've got quite a bit in the bank, but I think it's definitely something we should look at.
So Boyd, you plant the trees, who waters them and maintains them?
So the county would definitely maintain them. And as far as watering them, we'd have to figure out a way to do that. There is water in the area. That's something that I haven't figured out yet. So, and I'm actually studying to see which trees would be best for there. Apparently these individuals are going to get back with me, and they've done a lot of studies on these different trees. We want to make sure they're fire resistant, obviously. And we want to put the ones that have the best noise buffer.
So Boyd, so where would these, apologize, but so where would you suggest these trees be planted on this map right here?
Right along that.
Can you bring up that picture?
Next to the homes, correct? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, right along here.
Right.
So the value to Morgan City would essentially be a buffer along that property line. Buffer, yeah. Yeah, okay, all right, okay, all right.
Can you get the kind that don't blow over?
I'll do my best.
Do you have any idea of cost, Boyd, or?
I don't, Tony. This came up like super sudden. So I just thought it might be a good time to talk about it with you, where we're already talking about the PC with the state. I think it'd be a good project for the city and the county to do together. Obviously, it's going to benefit both the citizens of the city and the county. So I just thought I would bring it up to you and see if maybe the city would like to donate some trees.
Mayor or Ty, would this be something that would be appropriate for COG to look in a COG meeting for us to look at, or what's your thoughts on that?
I was going to say, or even put it on an agenda item on another.
Any thoughts there?
I guess my thoughts, I appreciate Boyd bringing this to us, appreciate the concept idea. I think it needs to be looked at more to see tough trees, watered. Today's thought, if we get planted and never watered, we can die, doesn't help out. I'd like to get some more information on it. Maybe have Boyd come back with more info on it. Watering plan, type of tree, is a benefit for fire or merely for noise protection. I'm not understanding how it would help with fire prevention. I get the noise piece, but I'm not sure about the fire prevention. So I'd like more information on the project before we make any move.
Absolutely, and I can do that.
Okay. All right. Is there a timeline you might have in mind, Boyd, that you could maybe come back with us with some additional information?
Yeah, I think give me 30 days.
Okay. Looking at the calendar here, we're not into, I don't see October. When's the fourth Tuesday in October?
And also if I can get cost estimates before the next meeting so I can make sure it fits within the current year's budget somewhere.
Would that work, Boyd?
Yes, that'd be fine.
26th of
Tony.
October?
Yep.
Can we get you on the agenda for that date?
Yep.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions at this
Just
time?
in general, Boyd, just to understand the gun range, does that belong to the county? I mean, your report there's some work that needs to be done clearly. Is that, does it fall to the county to remediate?
Yes, so it's county property. And the county will be responsible for making better berms and making it safer, not only for the chance of maybe a gun going off the wrong way,
Mhm.
but also for fire protection.
Okay.
If we get a fire in that area with that type of vegetation and the winds that we have there, it's going to be a significant event for
Mhm.
sure.
Great, thank you.
Hey Boyd, I have a question.
Yep.
On a different note, we have a whole pile of wood chips, and I don't know, do those help in buffer zones or, fire
They would,
protection or anything?
Yeah, might be something that we could put underneath the trees to help hold the moisture. Are they,
And
what kind of wood chips are they? Do you know?
from our last wind event.
Oh, okay, yeah, at the dump
Yeah.
station?
Yep.
Okay,
So anyway, they're available for county use too. So if you, have other county facilities, let me know. I was just thinking that, like, if you could replace weeds with really thick wood chips, they probably
Right.
wouldn't be as flammable. So
right. If we can keep the flame lengths down, that's what we want. And the wood chips might work perfectly, actually, because right now, the vegetation in that area is 3 feet tall.
Any other questions or comments?
All the county needs is a herd of goats
Yeah,
and fence it. They'd have it going.
they're doing that now on fire lines. They're
Yeah,
letting
a
go.
lot of places have goats and just rotate them around,
Yep, they do.
and they take
Yeah.
care of those weeds pretty handily.
Mhm.
goats in a shooting range, are they?
Target.
No, I was gonna say, is that you're supposed to feel good about yourself if you can pick off a goat? I'm just kidding.
Okay, Boyd, so thank you and,
Thank you.
Yep, I'll
You'll
get back
return
with
on-
you and
okay, very good.
get a
On the, what was it, the 28th? 28th, 26th, sorry. Thanks, Boyd. Appreciate your work. Moving down to the next item on the agenda, it's the capital improvement list, short and medium-term projects. Jeffrey, do you want to talk about this for just a second as regard to some of our discussions in
Well,
COG meeting, and then we'll turn it over to Ty.
at COG, I'm still not sure how this affects us in Morgan City, but with the Wasatch Bag, the Wasatch Front Regional Council, we have to have these capital improvement lists put together so that we can try and go out and procure any kind of funding. And so they've been asking for the city and the county through COG. We need to have a list put together. And so as we look through this, I believe ranking them from priorities, some stuff we're working through right now, others are more of a wish list. And so we just need to combine our list, get it to COG, combine our list with the county list. So I think that's what's kind of pushing this through the COG side.
And Ty or Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, we need to have this list in place before we can expend any of the money from the Corridor Preservation Fund. Is that correct? Or was I misinformed on that?
Currently, that's not a requirement. It's one place it can exist. So most of the grants that you go after, they just say, is it on a list or part of a plan? Anytime you're asking for funding. The list through the COG specifically is for the CIB board, which we don't qualify for. But Jeffrey was right on the process that we go through. So what this is this isn't combined. This is just our list. And what I've done is worked with our department heads to actually make this a functioning list for ourselves. We've accomplished a lot of the things that were on previous years' lists. And so that's what this is tonight, is more just focused on the cities, all the projects we have coming up, and the funding sources that potentially could fund them.
So Ty, this is the list that sitting down with the department heads. This is the newest list that you've come up with, correct?
Yeah, pretty accurate to what we have on our horizon, things that we're working on currently. So can you see the list on the?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you'd like, I can just answer any questions. I could highlight a few things. One of the reasons we're working on it right now was to kind of outline future possible uses of ARPA, or the America Rescue Plan money that's been allocated to the state. We have 4 projects that we're putting in on the deadlines tomorrow. And so I just wanted to bring this to council to make sure you were aware of the higher level capital improvement projects for additional state money that we're going after. And in our applications, we will be citing that it's on our list, right? We're just not making things up. These are needs of the city moving forward.
Ty, there was some uncertainty as to how the money would be or could be used. Do these all meet the criteria that you've identified?
Yeah, so water, sewer, and broadband are all eligible. And then it just ranking, the state's gonna kind of rank or prioritize some of them. They included language that help with drought resistance and other things other than just negative impacts of COVID. So it's pretty wide open compared to what the CARES Act included.
Is there any priority to the order of the listing on the sheet?
No, so the priority, and the councils feel free to, adjust these. We have, of course, on the first page, we have a lot of high priorities, but it's also, this list is a matter of funding, right? So we have high priorities, but if we happen to get grant money for one and not another, then that kind of dictates which project we go after, which ones we start working on first, unless it's such a priority, like the system needs it, or it's gonna, something bad's gonna happen. So that's kind of how that works.
So Ty, you and I had a chat here the other day when we were on that tour. You indicated to me that we were at this time, we were waiting for these diffusers we're just waiting on them. Is that correct? The diffusers?
Yeah, so that's one of the projects. We just applied for ARPA money. The amounts are wrong. That's a $700,000 project now. The project that we approved before was just the blowers and the piping and the manifolds. It was all the parts for the diffuser, but we have to put out a project now for construction. And the sewer system is struggling right now. I'll just go ahead and talk about that right now. But our pond 3 is going, or is septic. It's one of them that was not dredged before. I didn't know that. It was just ponds 1 and 2 that were dredged. And so we've been meeting with rural water and talking about combining cells 1 and 2, possibly to create a lot more capacity, and then doing a 3-pond rotation instead of 4-pond. Right now we're just working through bypassing Pond 3 and doing what we can to stay on top of it. But those diffusers are supposed to help out in a big way. We just haven't got them installed yet. So
Are they here? Or are they still on order or?
they're still on order. Yep. We have the clock, we put them on the clock. We accepted and they had 120 days to deliver. So we've paid I think it was 5% down to get them ordered, but we haven't seen them yet. So anyway, that's a high priority. That 550 we have already obligated about 300 ourselves, and then it's going to be an additional potentially 550, and we've applied for grant money for that. So I don't know, do you want me to go through the other ARPA ones
Sure,
real
absolutely.
fast? So this one on water is to build a 1.5 million gallon water tank. So that would replace our North Morgan tank that is only 100,000 gallons. It's pretty small. And it would be built on our own property. We'd pipe over from the same connection that we have, but pipe it over to our own property that it is at the correct elevation, but has it's a lot more property. So construction would be possible. It's estimated about $3.5 million. So I'm going to be putting in for $3 million on that to see what happens from the state's portion. That would help a lot. Like with our spring flows, part of the problem this year was our capacity to store. And so, we're pumping as fast as we can to keep up with demand, but not putting away, not capturing all the spring flows when we have a chance to. So
That tank's currently in pretty bad shape, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that tank needs attention regardless. And so that's another one that's like, it's on the radar, but if we can get some funding for it now, then that would move it, straight up the list. This other one, let's see, that one's BOR grant, ARPA. So, and then also finishing out SCADA system.
Can I back up for just a second?
Oh, sure.
I apologize. That one right there, you're on right there. Water treatment building for Parkwell.
Uh-huh.
Currently, can we even utilize the Parkwell?
We use it on a limited basis, but because it's not treated, we try not to. And it doesn't need much treatment. It's just, we typically don't run it unless we absolutely have to.
But by taking care of this project, then that well becomes, we could utilize it.
Yeah, so that well is in the floodway, and so we can't really we can't change the building where it's at, and so this would pipe over to a treatment building. So the well would still be there, would pipe over into the park and build a small treatment building right there, and then put it back into the system. And that's actually ARPA. That's one of the ARPA grants. I mislabeled that one because it would be eligible.
That would make that would make that well usable.
Yep.
More usable.
Yep.
I would think with our water situation, that would be a fairly high priority as well. I would guess, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and we have one more ARPA one down here, which is our lowest priority as far as water projects. But if we can get some grant money, I'm putting in on a grant for that one as well. But that connects two pressure zones. The Mahogany tank is a higher pressure zone, and North Morgan is a low pressure zone. And so where that new development is on, I think it's 825. Anyway, it comes through 825 and connects to 525. If we can connect to there and run a line up 525 or change that line out, we would actually get high pressure on the North Morgan side, so we get fire protection and so that's another potential benefit there. We've applied for backup generators currently. The Young Street Bridge is in progress.
Hi, on the Young Street Bridge, it seemed like 2 or 3 months ago, we sent a letter back to a senator and we were maybe one of 4 entities that looked like they could get some funding. Is that going to come through?
Well, we're still on the list. They haven't finished appropriations yet. So I was just talking to the mayor about it. I don't know if it's a special appropriation, like through that infrastructure bill that they're looking at, or if it's the annual federal budget that typically gets adopted for October 1st. And so we haven't heard yet. We just know that we're still on the list, and however Congress does their.
So we haven't been denied then.
No.
And that would eliminate the $1.5 million loan, if I remember.
Correct. Yep. And our plan is to not have to loan for the 1.5. We'd be using more out of our capital improvement list. And then we've also applied for the COG. We'll be applying for $300,000. So it's a little something to help out as well. So kind of where that's at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ty.
You bet. Any other questions on the?
It's a nice wish list.
Well, it's not so far out. A lot of this stuff's possible. I mean, it's pretty interesting as we went back to the old list, how many things we had actually accomplished. So
He's got us on right now, the mechanical plant. If we had that, we wouldn't even we were worried about the diffusers.
That's correct.
yeah, the mechanical plant, we've had some discussions and we're still hopeful that the lagoons will, with these diffusers and some other, there'll be high dollar projects, but the mechanical plant just comes with tons and tons of maintenance and replacement costs. So then it's a never ending. Their lagoons are by far much more efficient. So anyway, we're halfway there. If everything doesn't work out, then I will be asking the state to help us with a mechanical plant, but we're going to do everything we can with the lagoons until that point. So
Tony,
Again,
Tony,
yeah.
I appreciate everything that's been said. Let me give a couple of comments. This list serves several purposes, as has been mentioned. And I won't restate what you and Jeffrey said. Those are all correct. One thing I'd like to say is I would like to compliment Ty and the city staff for coming together and putting together these projects from the various departments. They've worked on this for several months with the department heads and discussing what would move our city forward. The other piece that we have not had a great success in the past is with the grants. And you notice, and Ty, just because we're talking about several of those grants, most of these on the top part of this list will utilize grants if they are available. So I, for one, appreciate Ty and staff for looking at projects that fit the grants, projects that I think are valuable and helpful for the city.
Yep, absolutely. I agree, Mayor. Thank you for that comment.
yep, thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. Is there any other questions or comments on the capital improvement priorities?
Or anything you have in mind that you don't see on the list, that would also be good feedback. So
Yeah, and I guess I would add, if you have any ideas or thoughts or suggestions for items on this list, to get a hold of Ty and contact Ty, and we could always, it's a work in progress. It's a living document. So if you have any ideas.
And if I could add it, there's no total column, but if you can kind of get a sense for our capital improvement fund, we have needs far greater than we have resources, and I think that's common everywhere. So we just do the best we can as we move forward. So.
I guess a point of order here, does this require a motion or Mayor?
That's a,
Council, do we need this a motion?
Doesn't require one.
Okay. Okay. With no other comments on that, let's continue on with our agenda. Thanks for that report on the CIP, Ty. Appreciate that. Down to city reports and business. From our city manager, Ty, you're still up to bat. A lengthy list of items here. So Utopia take rate report starts it off.
yeah, this is kind of cool. I can see the whole council, so I know when someone's nodding off. Because I have a handful of updates. But anyway, as of August, this is all of the Utopia cities, and we get a report on our take rate. So I thought I'd just take an opportunity to share with the council that Morgan, right here, you can see that, correct?
Yes.
Has the highest take rate of any city thus far. So we're right at 60% take rate. So successful project for sure.
What was the take rate they wanted, Ty, when we started down this path?
28%. So our floor or our minimum, I think, was right at 28%, but it was actually a 504 connections, if I remember right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the other thing about this take rate that's interesting is if you look how they define the take rate, it's the number of subscribers divided by the number of parcels. So there's a lot of vacant parcels that count against that take rate. So of the developed land, it would be interesting to see how much higher that would be.
Hi, what would account for that number?
What's that?
Say what accounts for that? I mean, why is that significantly higher than most?
Ours?
The rate?
Our take rate just means that, one, I think it demonstrates the need that our community had for better internet service. We were an underserved.
Right. All communities would need good service, but here's Clearfield at only 11%. We're at 60. I mean, there's something going on there that
Yeah, so Clearfield has some
we're
options,
doing it
right?
accepting it way more than them.
Yeah, well, and they also have some options. And so in a lot of these other cities, you can still get Comcast internet or, fiber from a different provider.
So competition then.
Right. And there's wireless companies. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. We're a small market, so we don't have a lot of people trying to expand their networks. And at the time, even the incumbent providers were not doing new connections or upgrading their infrastructure.
The new cities are Clearfield, and they just barely got funded. But Utopia actually started building the way they did in Morgan in advance of the funding coming in. So that 11% is pre-funding.
Okay.
So Clearfield, as Morgan did, we'll have a takeoff period of 6 months to a year, and you'll see the rates go up significantly.
West Valley is a low one too, Gary. That's probably just competitive forces at work there.
It's less competitive forces and more. West Valley is one of the last cities to totally build out.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got the new builds in there, a lot of the new builds that they're building combined with the old build. And so if you look a year down the road, those totals will be up where they need to be. Same thing happened in Layton when we actually funded the remaining of the build in Layton. All of a sudden our figures dropped because there were all these new new construction all over the place.
Units.
And new units that were being put in. And as the new units came on, then you got a higher take rate for the number of areas that could be deployed or number of lots that could receive service. And so that's what happens. But yeah, in a year, you'll see the take rates in these new cities come to the same place at not nearly as high as Morgan, but Morgan's a really good example of
Could you
What is really
convince Layton to carry their weight?
The other thing is we are like a subdivision of one subdivision in Layton. So percentage wise and number of connections, I'm glad we're not comparing total number of connections. So anyway, anything else on?
That's awesome.
That is kind of where we're at. So before I do the carbon-free power project, I also wanted to let the council know that we hired a new planner. His name's Wilf Summercorn. He's very experienced through the Gary taking care of us as a city. He got us connected with Wilf, and he just barely started this month. But I'm pretty excited about working with him and getting some of our ordinances updated along the way. And we've had good planners, but Wilf is retired as operates as a consultant, and I think we'll the way we structured his contract leave some room in there for him to update and propose ordinance changes as well as function as a staff planner. So we're pretty excited to have him.
Gary, could you talk about his background a little bit?
Sure. Wilf started with Davis County and became the community development director for Davis County. And then he was hired by Salt Lake City and became the community development director for Salt Lake City. And then he was hired by Salt Lake County and became the community development director for Salt Lake County, the biggest county in the state. And so he ran that for a number of years. And Wilf's background is he's very, very well connected up to the legislature. With the APA, he represents the APA during the legislative session, the Association of Planning Association. And so he also is a member of a board that I sit on, which is the Utah Land Use Institute. And he's doing a lot of work for them right now. We put on presentations throughout the year on land use and those types of issues, but he instructs all over the place. He's a very, very sought after instructor. So they'll pull him across the state.
He's willing to take on Morgan, huh?
Yeah, I was very surprised when I asked him. He said yes.
Great.
So
Thanks for keeping us in mind, for helping us out.
he's top notch. He knows how to work with planning commissions and also understands planning and zoning. I mean, he's active in the legislative end of it too. So you'll see some good changes, I think, come about.
I was very impressed with him at the last planning meeting. He was at our last planning meeting, and yeah.
He also sits on the planning commission for Kaysville. So he's doing a service there as well. So that's his hardest responsibility, I think. Thanks, Ty.
Another personnel update. So I'm moving Ro Howard. He's our Parks and Cemetery supervisor. He's accepted the opportunity to become a building inspector. So we're making that change. He's not certified at this point, but he'll be working with Josh, our contracted building official. And so he'll get some really good training, and he's committed to do the schooling necessary to become an inspector and plans examiner. So we'll be able to do that in-house and have a lot more, be a little bit more responsive, just as far as availability and having roll around. And so we're hiring a new parks and cemetery supervisor. So if you know of anyone or you get asked, a job will be posted tomorrow. And so that's what that personnel changes. Any questions about that? Next thing is UAMP. So this bring down certificate, this is an update. The Carbon Free Power Project just did opened a line of credit, which requires signatures. And so these are the documents Gary signed and the mayor and Denise both signed. Basically just for their closing document says that we are part of the project and that we've handled that appropriately through our previous meetings.
Oh,
go ahead.
Ty, is that bank required?
Yeah.
Okay. So how big is that facility, that credit facility?
How big is the line of credit?
Yes.
Like dollar amount?
Yes.
So 35 million.
And then we own 1.3% of it?
Yeah, so it's a financial mechanism, the line of credit. So we only owe what we draw down on it, but basically it allows the project to front the money while it's waiting to get reimbursement from the DOE to keep the project moving. I think it's just like a 2-year line of credit. So it's just a financial tool. If you'll notice, our percentage actually went down from the last time we talked on our entitlement share. I think we were at 1.3. It went down just slightly, but there's another 1.5 megawatts of subscription among the members. So there's some members that are still adding to that their portion. So
Was the line of credit planned from the beginning, or is that something that's new? I mean, did we know that we would be committing to that, to going into it?
Yeah, they operate, most all the projects have revolving lines of credit. So we basically waited till the project got to actual work on site. So they're drilling wells, they're doing a lot of site development. So there's tangible bills being paid through that financial mechanism. So
when it comes time to build out, is this line used for that, or is there another?
So the whole thing will get refinanced. So when it's a line of credit that gets us to the next stage in the project. So once we get the COLA or the operating license, and we have that next jumping off point. Once it becomes a fully subscribed project, then it gets refinanced into the whole cost of the new project, if that makes sense. It's like a development cost.
I mean, worst case scenario, if the line were fully funded, you said it was 35 million?
Yeah.
And the Department of Energy said we're through and we had this line of credit, we'd owe another 350,000, it looks like. Well, more than that, the 1.22%.
Yeah, if the entire line of credit was used and not repaid, but it's kind of pay as you go, so it's getting reimbursed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we're 4 months out, and then of course only a portion of what's spent is eligible for reimbursement. So it pays back some of the line of credit, and then moving forward it will increase over time. So.
But through the subscription process, all of these cities back that line of credit, would be my guess.
Yep. So that's what these documents, every single participant submitted these documents for closing. I think they close on it tomorrow.
Yeah, it was tomorrow.
Yep. So anyway, projects moving forward. Definitely a lot of need. I learned a lot at the retreat that we went to, or the conference. I learned a little bit about why some of the hesitancy on Washington and Oregon utilities. There's definitely interest, but they're not sure that their legislature is going to allow them to. They haven't made a ruling on nuclear yet, so definitely everybody's going carbon free, but until the reality that they can't do it with just wind and solar hits them, and whatever their own states are doing legislatively, nobody's really willing to sign up until they're sure that they'll be able to use power from a nuclear source. So anyway, come along.
Good.
Let's see. I'll get my glasses out here. Let's go in order of what's on the packet here. So we are, of course, always supporting the chamber. This is the next event, is a business expo and also a speaker. So it's a motivational speaker. We signed up as a sponsor. So if you're interested, let me know, or let Wanda know. We get 40 tickets as the city. And so the council members and the staff and your families are all invited to attend. There he is. So Dan Clark is the speaker. So the first part of this business expo is, I don't know if you've been before, but it's booths and different businesses. It's always interesting to see businesses that I didn't realize we have in Morgan County there, and then some food truck before, and then 7 o'clock is the speaker on the football field.
I guess the change is it's always been inside the common area in the past, hasn't it? I believe. And they now moved it to the football field.
Yeah, we've had it in the auditorium.
Right.
So, yep. And the vendor area was pretty packed in the commons area, and then the speaker in the auditorium.
So
go ahead.
hi.
Mm-hmm.
Just on Dan Clark, I'm acquainted with Dan. He's one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world, so it'd be well worth anyone's time. He actually got his start in Morgan. He was an injured University of Utah football player, and the football coach here, back then invited him to come up to speak to the players to motivate them. His website, to get a little bit of a flavor for who he is and what he does, is just danclark.com.
Awesome, thanks. It's 7:30 at night, so I don't do a very good job selling things sometimes. If you were wondering, that's what I sound like when I'm excited. So thanks for the extra help there. Just an update on our general plan. On Thursday, the 16th, we have our community meeting. It's going to be at the city offices there in the council chamber, and the county's portion of the meeting will start at 5:30, and then the city's portion will be at 7 o'clock. You can attend either one, but more of the focus on the city specific zoning is going to be at 7. And the county's portion at 5:30 will include like village centers and stuff like that that we don't have included in our plan. So good opportunity to let people know if they want to participate and give feedback and see what the concept is up to this point. It's just for the general public. Any questions about that? Okay.
Is there a Zoom link to that, Ty?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we'll forward that announcement out. Let me write that down. Or Denise, if you can help remember to send that to council. It's in my email, so. I think they just made the link not too long ago, so. Actually, I forgot I had this.
Yeah.
There's the announcement. You can also find the link on the website, morgan2050.org, and then we have it by email though. We can send the Zoom link. Man, what a pretty place.
Seem to be filled with homes.
Is that from your backyard?
No, this one's not. This one's more, looks like a drone,
Yeah.
but the one on our website's from my backyard.
Yeah, I remember that.
Let's see, water usage report. I gotta stop sharing that. So our water situation, our inflows have stabilized. We feel pretty good about where we're at. You can see that.
Yes.
So I just made a little chart just to show you the difference. Early in the season, this is just for the summer months. We started off with higher than normal usage. Of course, it was really hot and dry. And then for some reason, June has been right on the money 3 years in a row at least. I didn't go back much further. I just wanted to kind of see where we were at, and then you can see how flat our usage this year has been. That's incredible. For the month of August, we used 4.7 million gallons less than the previous 2 years. And you can see how consistent June and August were, regardless of, the weather in the past. So I think our actions are paying off. Your willingness to focus on that overage rate. I mean, we've had some upset people for sure, but there's a lot of people really trying. It's a concerted effort. 4.5 million of those 4.7 was from residential use specifically. So that's and like on this bullet point, I think that's also significant that we save that much water, even in a year where we added a car wash, a hotel, and 22 new residential connections. And so just really proud of our guys fixing leaks. It's also, despite the fact that we replaced meters, so you'd think with more meters functioning that number would go up. So it's probably even, a better number than that. So,
Can I take a longer shower now?
not till, we'll see where September, and a lot of that is weather, just depends on what's going on. But as far as the city usage, that's working with the HOAs and fixing leaks and everything else. And plus it was a statewide media. I think you can kind of see that we kind of maybe in the beginning of the season either didn't think that it was a real drought or didn't affect Morgan. But when we started talking about it, you could, and taking our steps, that's a really, really good sign right there. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, good report.
The only fly in the ointment with that is I see that our secondary water shut off on September 20th. And you got to hope that a lot of people don't decide to start watering on a culinary.
Yeah, and really, I think that concern's gone way down just because they went so long into September. I don't know that the 20th is necessarily that much earlier than normal, but had they ended water at the beginning of the month or even towards the end of August, that would have been a huge concern. But we're getting close, and we've, if we get a rainstorm here or there, just continue on the path we're on. Hopefully we'll keep that trend.
Hey, Ty, this is Eric. Hey, I think we need to continue on that path. I mean, I've been looking into the long range forecast for the winter and they're saying it's more of the same. They're saying it's going to be cold and dry. And so again, this has been on my mind a lot of, well, we need to keep up what we're doing, because, we just need to, I think, how we were up on the spring. I think we may need to go into this next spring if what they're forecasting is correct, which I'm crossing my fingers they're wrong. But if what they're forecasting is right, we could be in a lot worse trouble than what we have been this summer. I mean, they're like in an Echo Reservoir. I think it's now below 17% capacity. I was up at Lost Creek and I don't know where it's at, but I didn't realize there was islands out in the middle of that thing that's now appeared. So
Yeah.
I think we need to continue on our efforts and continue that message through maybe even winter and springtime. So.
Yep, we'll definitely stay on it. Hopefully this isn't like a we're out of the woods presentation. I was just trying to show you the impact that we've had so far. So
yeah,
That's great.
Yep.
Job.
Let's see. So the next one on my list is the alcohol licenses. And so this is a really preemptive. We don't have anything pushing this, but I found out the other day that for some reason we have imposed our own limit on number of alcohol licenses that we're willing to permit. So maybe, council members from before know something more about that. I just think it's kind of arbitrary with all the way the state manages liquor licenses. It's pretty restrictive, and it's not like we have a lot of them knocking down the door, but we have two. One's being used, and so we only have one left. And so I'd just like to maybe see if the council's interested in changing that or removing that restriction. We can talk about it in a future meeting, as far as call for a vote, but just kind of see where everyone's at, or if there's some history there or some concern I'm not aware of. But this is the type that would belong in a restaurant. So it doesn't include, the liquor store, the grocery store, or gas stations. It's the consumptive alcohol license. And so hopefully we get restaurants, with the hotel here now and that sort of thing. I just hate to either limit the future for, a nice restaurant that wants to serve alcohol, or try and figure this issue out while we have an application on the table and make it about that particular restaurant instead of maybe a preemptive decision that gives us a little better path forward.
What is our limit right now? What is our rule?
Do we have one?
We have one. It's 2. We will only allow 2 in the city, and 1 is currently being used by the post. And so we only have 1 available. So
Is that per our own ordinance? Or
Yep, that's our own. Yep. So even if we didn't have a restriction, you're still only allowed so many feet within a school, or, all the other state applications. But we've kind of put that on ourselves. Just something I found out the other day, and, I'm not sure it's maybe at one time it was a huge concern, but our demand, I don't know. I think our demand's probably self-limiting.
Does the state provide any guidance on that?
They control. So ours is basically like if you apply for a business license and you're a restaurant, then we make sure that they have a alcohol license from the state before we even approve it. So in this situation, if they've gone through the effort to get permitted through the state, then we're saying we don't care. After one more, we don't care that the state has given you a liquor license. We're saying no. So that's the conversation that we don't have right now. So we have kind of an opportunity to decide which direction we want to go. And the state has plenty of, I don't know what the specifics are, but I do hear that it's pretty difficult to get approved through the state with all their restrictions anyway. So
There aren't very many available at the state, and that's part of the problem. Is even if we have one listed as, one more that we could put in Morgan, the number of licenses at the state level are very, very few, and they're trying to get that expanded. I know that last year they tried to get it expanded by a few, but they are eating up pretty fast.
How does, Gary, how does Layton approach that?
We have areas that where we allow it, and then we have a ring around those areas, and outside of that area, they call them super blocks. And we allow so many alcohol businesses within each super block. The exception is around the mall where you've got a lot of restaurants that want to serve liquor. So, but it's really tough for them to get that license.
So are you limiting licenses then in Layton, or is the state making that limitation?
State makes that limitation
Yeah.
pretty much.
Gotcha. So maybe ours could look something similar. It would be directed by what the state could allow.
Yeah, we could just defer to the state, right?
Mhm.
And not have our own. It's
Right.
That kind of makes more sense.
Separation requirements, they have
Sure.
everything on a state level. State.
I'd hate for them to go through that whole process with the state and then us turn around and say, no, gotta be.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Beer licenses, they do require the city weigh in on those. So
Mhm.
the city can also control what type of alcohol is served in its restaurants. So,
And I maybe assume that this has been on the books for so long that maybe, at the time there weren't that many restaurants that typically, nice restaurants that served alcohol as an option. I don't know, but
Ty, could
Anyway.
you work on aligning ours with the state? Is that something you could look into?
Well,
and get back?
I can come back with a proposal, but we could pretty much just abandon having our own restriction and just defer to the state. So we would give a business license to anybody that got approval from the state,
Mhm.
right? That's just an easier
Sense to me.
approach. I just like to have that conversation before we have an applicant. If
Ray, what's your thought on something like that?
Ty asked me the other day, I have no idea as far as the reasons why and back history. And maybe it was before Tony Meyer's time as far as why they just said two. At this point, I think pretty confident the state's regulations pretty well regulate who can and can't have one. If a business such as a new restaurant has the organization wherewithal and the fortitude to measure up to state requirements, I don't think we're going to put any additional requirements on them. The only thing we have is just a limited number, not the requirements of what they have to go through in order to get the license. We just limit it to two. I have no logical reason to why we've done that. So I think at this point, my input would be either expand that number 4 or 5, or drop that piece from our code, just let the state dictate through their rules and regulations.
You mean we'd still want some requirements limiting service around schools and things like that?
That's dictated by the state already.
The state already does it. Okay.
The state will not give anybody a license that has those type of situations involved in their business.
I think we just defer to the state. It'd be my thought.
The only thing our ordinance does is just puts a number of how many will allow. It doesn't have any additional requirements.
Mm-hmm.
could I ask, do you have, I know a couple of years ago, we got approved at the legislature, a Class C liquor outlet.
Yes.
Did that ever materialize, or did it?
Yes, Gary, it did. It's doing very well. Visited with them the other day, and they actually are the location that supplies liquor to our current restaurants. They supply liquor to the Post, to Taggart's, and to the Stoddard Inn. All those facilities now have to buy through a state licensed store. So that store on Commercial Street is up and functioning, doing well. Yes.
Yeah, it's doing really well, and I've heard of no problems. So it's good.
I think the limit of 2 was set by the High Council.
In 1890,
Yeah.
So moving on.
So,
Not very often I don't have another comment, but that I didn't have another one, so that's good.
you want a consensus from the council, or do you want to bring back a proposal?
No, I think I got enough feedback that I could propose something and just let them vote on it.
Okay.
Like through the discussion, like I don't need to take a straw poll or anything. I'll just propose
Okay.
something for a future agenda and see where it goes.
Did you increase it to 4 or 5, or else you drop the number totally? Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of head nods on drop the numbers, drop it totally.
Yeah, I like that. Because then we struggle with what's the appropriate number. Well,
Yeah.
you know, the market will only sustain so many people, and if we have that many, it's going to be how many people coming from out of town. You know, just based on our own local population. So
Yeah, population comes into play, doesn't it?
yeah. So this next one is Peterson Pipeline Association. So Peterson Pipeline Company supplies culinary water to their residents, and they're in the process of drilling a second well. And a part of that regulation from the state, they would like them to have a backup supply. So they asked if the city would be willing to be an emergency, if we would be willing to do an agreement to be an emergency or backup supply of water for their system. It's a pretty small system. I kind of just asked them what they're thinking, and I just told them it would be, if we did it, it would be $8 per 1,000 gallons. They would haul maximum of 12,000 gallons a day, and it would still be contingent on if we felt like we had adequate water available. So they have a 2,000 gallon tank. So relatively small, and I understand the dynamics, but I think it doesn't hurt to have agreements, because if we had something, we would be relying on someone to be hauling water as well. And so that's just kind of an update. If you're interested, we can go through the effort to have Gary help us with making agreements. If it's no, we're not interested, just kind of a straw poll, that way. But when you look at the usage, and we're in the 16,000 or 16 million gallons a month, I feel like it has very low potential impact to the water system, and we still would have the opportunity to say, yeah, no, it's not today. The other thing we have is we have a well that we could pull from that's actually not part of our water system. We have a culinary well down at the sewer facility we could potentially haul from that's not part of our current water system. So anyway, that's what that is about.
Is all of the service within our city limits?
Say that again.
With the service of the Peterson water pipeline, the water that they're serving, is it within our city limits?
No.
No.
Tony, may I? Tony, may I?
So, Ty, the numbers that you just came up with the 12,000 gallons a day, $8, I get the $8, that's the overage fee, 12,000 gallons a day. Is that what you're thinking? And
well, yeah, they would buy the water from us. They would have to buy it. They would haul it, all of that. We would just agree to be a potential backup source, and the mayor has some comments on
yeah,
that as well.
Mayor.
This is an area down around the old Heinz Quick Stop. that area there. They currently have a well where they have a culinary water system that runs up Morgan Valley Drive heading towards the Milton area. And they're well doing fine. The state's requesting they have a secondary backup. For some reason, their well should go down, pump should go out, so they can still serve their people. So this is merely them reaching out and say, hey, what they're saying, if our well goes down, could we come transport water to put in our pipeline until we get our well up and running again? That's what they're asking. Currently, they're currently drilling a second well. Once they get their second well drilled, they wouldn't need this agreement. I talked to a guy last night, talked to their secretary last night on the phone, and he said they're in the middle of drilling their well. They just run into some state water questions they've had to answer with the state water department. So that's kind of what it is. And those citizens down there, states are asking them to have a secondary backup in case their well goes out. And they're in the process of putting in another well.
So I guess a concern might be though, and this draws from our discussion a month ago with Mr. Cannon here, but are we committing ourselves to commitments down the road? I mean, suppose that well failed permanently, maybe Gary, you could help with that, but are we committed to keep supplying that 12,000 gallons indefinitely? And that said, then have we set a precedence that we've done it with Peterson and now there's X, Y, and Z companies that would like the same guarantee?
Good question.
We could craft something into the agreement that indicates that we could end that relationship anytime with so many days' notice. I think that would probably be wise. And certainly,
But
an overriding factor would be that Morgan has enough money or enough water to provide for its.
are we the bad guys cutting water off to them though?
Yeah, it's a consideration. They would
You know,
have to
some-
take responsibility for, for the maintenance of the wells, because every water provider is responsible.
Mhm.
We want to make sure we don't put ourselves in the position of being a water provider for them.
I guess that's what the question would lead up to is, are we committed? Are we guaranteeing a water source? But again, then secondly, on a precedent, I mean, we do it with Peterson, or anyone in the county comes to us and says, our system needs a backup. Would you provide it? Are we willing to do that? At what point do we say, we can't do any more?
Which would all be predicated on our water needs as well. So, yeah, and that could somehow be written into the agreement, I'm sure.
Well, certainly we'd have to take care of ours.
Yeah, and we would never be obligated to replicate that agreement. It's all just terms and conditions, and most systems have to have a backup source in order to qualify as a system, and so the likelihood's pretty small.
We don't have any other agreements currently with any other systems.
No, we're part of a statewide mutual aid agreement that a lot of people aren't aware of. So in a declared emergency, the state of Utah can help broker and just share resources, and there's a mechanism for that under a declaration. That would be really extreme if we ran out of water just because of a shortage of water. That's more like earthquake or something else that disrupts water systems. So we just all the municipalities I think would just be in a position to help each other out if they had to. So
Would the council be in agreement to move ahead with Ty and Gary adopting some type of an agreement?
Put something together to, just be a good neighbor.
Yeah,
Have
I'd
an
all for
agreement.
being a good neighbor, but how big of a neighbor, and again, 10 years down the road, does everybody want to be, do we want to, or are we being asked to be good neighbors to everybody? Let me ask Ty, anybody, other systems in the county that require that backup, how have they satisfied that requirement? Does anybody know?
That requires based on size of the system. A lot of there's a lot of systems in the county. And Dave, you bring up some excellent points. I appreciate your viewpoint on this. The situation with the other ones, for example, there's one in Croydon, there's one up in Richville, there's one in the Star area, there's 3 or 4 or 5 down in Mountain Green area, Highland area, and so forth. I'm not sure about those in the Highlands area. Those are larger systems, but all the other smaller systems, the state has not made them have a backup source at this point, based on number of participants.
Could, Gary, in a contract, could you limit the maximum number of days up front that you would provide that water? Because we're saying it's an emergency. Okay, emergencies come and go. Could we say, yeah, if it's available, we're able to do it for a 60-day or a 90-day period. And then after that, they know in advance, ahead of time, that that's when it's turned off. And then nobody's a bad guy.
Yeah, you could definitely write a time period in if you wanted to.
Yeah, the emergency nature of it would say it's limited by this number of days.
Yeah, another thing to consider is this is just an agreement for something that we would already have the mechanism for. So, there's trucks that come and buy a meter and haul water in the thousands of gallons a day for construction projects and everything else. It's just, they're tapping a culinary source. So it kind of just satisfies their need by agreement. And I think we can work on the language to take care of the concerns. But, quite literally, people rent meters and haul water from our system all the time. So.
Sure, but those are one-off events. This, I think, has the potential of being longer relationship, being an agreement like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to be careful in setting it up. But yeah, if we're inclined to be good neighbors, let's, with those thoughts in mind,
we could
work around that.
Yeah, we could always let Gary and Ty work on an agreement and bring it back to us. If we're not comfortable with it, we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can
Okay.
change it.
Or what it,
yeah. They sent a letter and we didn't want to put the effort into making a resolution and the terms of the agreement if the, council was opposed to it, but it sounds like it's worth our time to at least go see if we can't draft something that would make sense.
Yeah, if it's limited, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the action would be to bring us back in an agreement and let us take a look at it.
Yeah, and those trigger points, we could maybe brainstorm, who decides, or does it take a special session of the council, or, based on flow rates or, something like that. So basically, if it's available and we have somebody that can determine if it's an appropriate.
Yeah, anything more that you could define is going to pay some benefits.
Yeah.
If it's left open-ended, then who decides what's available and what isn't, and what's excess and what isn't?
Yep, for sure. Okay. Yeah, that's, because we have that well down at the sewer. That was my thought. I'd say, sure, we have water, but you got to bring it from our sewer. So
yeah, you can just pump that, right?
Yeah. We got two sources. One has a little bit of chlorine in it, and the other one has tons of nutrients. So
yeah, just tell them it's half price.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the water that goes to Weber and Davis County. So anyway,
they use it.
Yeah, they do. So I think that's all my updates.
Is there any other updates from members of the council?
Is Jeff Wardell still awake?
Pardon?
Is Jeff Wardell still awake? He's hiding behind the screen. I can't tell.
So last month when we met, again, talking about the water service outside of the county, reading through those minutes today, there were 4 references, 2 by Gary and 2 by Ty, suggesting that a policy be developed concerning annexation. And just maybe, Gary, if you could talk a little bit about that, what the policy would entail, maybe just general, not real specific, but, and then secondly, what's our process to do that? Because it appeared that the council, if they needed to maybe take some action to get that going.
So I think, I'm trying to think back to the minutes of that meeting and what we were trying to work through.
Remember?
Yeah,
This was just,
I specifically remember John's situation, but typically what Morgan has done is whenever they've had an annexation outside of their policy declaration area, they've sent it to the planning commission first for a recommendation, and then comes to the council. You don't have to do that by state law, because a petition generally comes to the council if it's within your annexation policy declaration. But if it's within your annexation policy declaration, then it means you can look at it and make a determination. You've got a provision in your code right now that says if you don't have enough utilities to be able to service something, you don't have to provide the service and you don't have to make the approval of that particular item. And so annexation is much the same. If you don't have the service to be able to provide for an annexation, somebody's not going to be allowed to come into the city until they can provide the full service that is needed, whether it be sewer, water, whatever it happens to be. So that's the kind of policy that we're talking about, which is if we can't service them, there's no use pulling them in.
yeah, so I found your part here, Gary. Gary explained it was a decision of the city council whether or not the extraterritorial extension of services was permitted. Okay. But then your statement, he strongly suggested the city needed a general policy as to whether or not development should occur outside the city with extension of services or wait until the homes are annexed into the city. Do we need something more than we already have in place as far as policy in that regard?
And I'm thinking that the thoughts were more centered around new development versus we already provide a lot of existing homes when their wells dry up or something happens. We provide them with water, but what I was referring to there, David, was more how much new development are you going to allow to connect on city services without annexing into the city boundary? Should there be a policy in place regarding that? Regarding what areas, what types of uses would you allow to come in on extraterritorial service? And it may be very, very narrow, maybe a couple of paragraphs is all.
So Gary, what if you don't mind, what I remember as well as we were saying, if you were going to allow annexation with specific conditions, then that's a lot of policy discussion, and we kind of left it at all or none. So you either annex and provide services, or are we willing to have some sort of a policy where you can have some of the services without annexation? And that's kind of what I remember was more what the discussion was. And so, without a policy, our standard, we're being consistent. We just haven't done it until we haven't entertained services without annexation. And that's kind of where we're headed. It's kind of an all or none approach. Either you're ready or not.
It's kind of where we ended up.
Yeah, and this probably falls in line with what you're saying there, Gary, but said he, meaning you, suggested the council create a policy regarding handling new development, wanting to be annexed, and also providing service to existing homes outside the city boundary. Do we need to take some steps in policy in that regard, in coming up with a policy?
I think you kind of did, with the canon.
Okay, that
I think that's kind of what you did, but
a little bit of a precedent setting, isn't it?
But I still don't think you addressed the situation where somebody who is already an existing home. I think we had one of those not a short time ago where there were two lots. One home had, I can't remember what the situation was, secondary water. It was where they were splitting secondary water, and there was one was outside the city, one was inside. But what are you going to do about homes that do exist? That's what happened to that home next that was on the property that Cannon was, there was a home that was existing, and that's what got the service. And that's why we let them have the service. And so the question arose as to whether or not you ought to continue that policy or not, and under what conditions.
So that would entail creating a policy then, is that correct? A formal?
Sometimes it can be informal. It can be either way, but you need to, whatever it is, it needs to be consistent. So that you can't say, well, this guy can have it.
Yeah, if it's.
Or this guy can't because he's 700
Right.
feet down the road. If this guy's only 15 feet, from the city, can you do it? Or
A better chance that it's consistent if it's written. isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
If we had some kind of formal thing, I think it would be a lot better, though. Then it's something we could refer to instead of just.
Well, and maybe with that, John Cannon wouldn't have even been here that night if the policy were in place.
The question hasn't come up very often. That's exactly right. If it had been in writing, it would be easy.
I think that's a great point, Dave. If we would have had something formally written, it could have. Here's our policy. We don't extend any services unless it's annexed into this city. Done.
Any other thoughts?
Something written up on it. We got a policy about it.
Could have saved us a lot of. If that's the precedence that we're going to set, and that's what we're going to hold to, then it would be nice to have something in writing.
It's kind of what we said a month ago. That was our decision a month
Yeah,
ago.
but we're not gonna
Yeah, we just didn't have the right.
let it go.
And he was asking, again, we've delivered service to existing homes, and we did one just a year ago on 100 South here, remember? But this was new in that it was new construction.
New construction.
Jeffrey, what is your thoughts? Do you feel
I-
we perhaps need a policy to address it?
I think it would, yeah, that say we're not gonna allow the new construction and even, I don't know, can we go as far as to say, if somebody's already there, is the state gonna say we have to deliver to an existing house that runs out of water?
It's a good question, but no, the state won't ever require you to do that. So they would have to find their own source of water. But typically in the past, where somebody's been in an emergency situation, we have extended water
Helped.
service to them. And I don't know if there are circumstances where you would, where a home doesn't have any choice as to where there is no other water source available except 700 feet away, is you want to do a 700-foot lateral in that situation, or do you just want to say no? Those are the.
So Gary, could you draft us a policy addressing Dave's concerns?
Eric's are easier, right? It's just, if it's not in the city, it's not. gonna come.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. That's basically the precedence we set.
So Gary, you said you could do it in 2 paragraphs. We're gonna see how good you are.
I don't get paid as much for 2 paragraphs as I do for a full 15 pages.
Maybe
Word.
one paragraph.
But I mean, that's kind of the precedence we set with John. I mean, the only thing that it was the new construction. I think in that thing, you'd have the verbiage, new construction. And some of those, I mean, there's some down by me that extend out there to some of those homes. I think that are outside but those are existing homes, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing I think the policy would say is new construction outside the city limits unless it's annexed in with all the services.
Ty, your thoughts seem to align with that, at least in the minutes. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to have Eric create his first policy.
It's a short one.
It's short.
And then we'll see if Gary can change his one sentence into 3 pages. That would be awesome.
Ray, any other comments?
No, I think we need to do it. Yes. Thank David again. Thank you for bringing that back up, putting that back on our attention. Yeah, we
Yep.
need to do that.
We'll move forward then. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, so
Good call, Dave.
Gary, we'll move forward with that and let you do your wordsmithing on that policy.
So along those lines, while you're talking about the previous minutes, my thought was now that we have Wilf on board on that chicken ordinance, I'll let him take a stab at crafting something. We have the minutes and all the comments, but I didn't bring that back. Yet I'll rely on Wilf to propose an ordinance on that follow-up
Input
item.
I've had from many people is no roosters. So just,
Yep.
I seriously have had a lot of input, no roosters. Anyway, does any of the council have any other updates or input? Do we need to go into this closed session then, Mayor? Is that correct? We do, Denise? Okay. So I will need a motion to entertain a motion to go into a closed session.
I'll make that motion, Tony, to go into a closed session to talk about and discuss the sale of real property.
Motion by Jeffrey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric.